Okay, so have you ever wondered how much your favorite author from Weekly Shonen Jump makes? Well, if you stick around, I'm about to tell you. Because for a long time, manga artists have inspired several millions of people around the world to want to pick up the pencil and start drawing their favorite ideas and bring them to life. And there's always been a passion and a dream for a lot of people to one day make it to Weekly Shonen Jump, whether it be in one of their off-branch manga magazines or just in general. It's an idea that a lot of people have, that they want to make their own manga and they want to get paid. And recently, Weekly Shonen Jump revealed how much more or less their authors make from their manga, and I would say it's surprising, but honestly it just really depends from person to person on how their perspective is on values of money. Because what we're about to dive into is going to give a breakdown on basically beat by beat how they make their money for the manga and the different variations and stages of making their money. And mind you, this does not include several of the other endeavors outside of actually the page count and Weekly Shonen Jump magazine, because manga authors also make money from a wide variety of different avenues, including the films, the merchandise. Like, they have other avenues of making money outside of just the salary that they get from Weekly Shonen Jump. So I just wanted to throw that in there. But yeah, let's check out this article because it's pretty interesting. Japan's biggest manga magazine is raising its minimum payment rate for creators. New manga artists will be earning more for their work at Weekly Shonen Jump. So already this is good news. Before we even get to the details of how much they're making, the fact that they're increasing the payment for these authors is a big win. I'm always happy, and I'm always very much so looking forward to seeing manga authors, or artists in general for that matter, take a W in the form of getting what they rightfully are owed in terms of, yeah, I think artists deserve the world. And so whenever I hear that they're getting more, whether it be more financial, more recognition, whatever the case may be, I'm here for it. So Shonen Jump, already good news there. Weekly Shonen Jump is Japan's biggest and most popular manga anthology, and publisher Shueisha apparently thinks it's gotten big enough to share a little more of the wealth that the magazine brings in. In an announcement made Monday through its official Twitter account, the Weekly Shonen Jump editorial department said this: "We would like to inform everyone that the minimum manuscript payment for serialized or one-shot manga in Weekly Shonen Jump has been raised effective as November 2024. So pretty much legit in real time right now, they are getting more money moving forward. Love to hear it. Based on sales profits received from readers of Weekly Shonen Jump print and digital editions, we will continue to make such reservations in the future in order to produce better working environments for our magazine's creators." And that's just how it's getting started. But now I know the main thing that a lot of people clicked on this video for is you want to know how much they are making. Well, it says here, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell if you want more of these videos. Under the new policy, artists will be paid a minimum of 31,350 yen, basically $206 per color page. Now, quickly before we continue, color pages usually in Weekly Shonen Jump, they don't happen that often. I mean, minus like One Piece. One Piece has a lot of color pages, and for the most part, when they do the color pages, there'll be about like 2, maybe if you're lucky, 3 colored pages. So you figure it would be anywhere from, whenever, every so often that they do get colored pages, they would get anywhere from like $200 to $600 extra dollars for their work and for their efforts, and 20,900 yen per black and white page. Let's do a yen to USD conversion so we can understand that. So based on the Google translator from Japanese yen to USD, as of right now, it says that is roughly $135.52 per page. So you do that, $135 times, let's say the average chapter of Shonen Jump is anywhere from 15 to 20 pages. We'll do, let's say, 18 pages. So that's about $2,430 per chapter, not including if there is colored pages. If there's colored pages, they're making upwards of about $3,000 a chapter. The vast majority of manga pages are published in black and white, and assuming an average page count of 20 pages per chapter, that would work out to about 418,000 yen in earnings per chapter a week, which extends to about 1.6 million yen for a month with 4 issues, or around 21.7 million yen for a 52-week year. Let's do the math. What is 21.7 million yen? So that's roughly about $140,000 a year, not including again the color pages and of course all of the other endeavors that they have outside of that, from again merchandising fees, film fees, etc, etc. Moreover, these are the starting rates for new manga creators whose work is being published for the first time. See, right there, that's even better news, because if this is just for like the series that just gets in Weekly Shonen Jump, and assuming of course they last the test of time, like for example, author of whether it be Kagurabachi, whether it be one of the newbies that just got in Shonen Jump, when they first start, already they have a very fine salary, and if they can stand the test of time, it only gets better from there. And I love hearing this, and I'm actually very grateful that I am covering this, because oftentimes it feels like when you talk about becoming an artist, when you talk about creating art, or you're aspiring for, you know, the big top of the line, you want to be up there, you want to be like Eiichiro Oda one day, you want to be like Masashi Kishimoto, you want to be one of the GOATs up there. A lot of times you're like, well, all I ever hear is bad things. Like when it comes to like the anime side of things, the animators are getting crumbs, you know, they're making less than $1,000 a month. Like, how am I supposed to live like this? So to actually hear some very good news that a starting manga author in Weekly Shonen Jump can make pretty much a very good living just getting started, that is great news. And I think that's definitely something that should be shared. People should have a little bit of hope of like, yo, being an artist isn't always like the biggest, you know, taking a loss and, you know, you gotta suffer for your art and be poor. Like, no, the possibilities can be extremely high if you aim for it. For continuing artists whose series is past its first year of serialization, so basically once you pass the threshold of roughly 48 to 52 chapters, that first year of serialization, Weekly Shonen Jump offers annual rate increases. And again, before we continue, that means that Eiichiro Oda, if he started with One Piece in 1997, how many years is that? What is that, like 27 years? So he has like basically 26 annual pay increases since then. And you got to imagine over time with One Piece becoming what it became, of like, you know, in 1 year it sold 30-40 million copies or whatnot. I can only imagine that Eiichiro Oda is just sitting very different. If he started off with roughly about 100 grand, 140 grand, depending on where it was at in 1997, he is easily banking, I'm going to assume, well, let's not assume, let's see if they give us more information. And the magazine's management is open to negotiation, even with first timers, if they have been offered higher rates from other magazines. So if you came from, let's just say, Kodansha's Weekly Shonen magazine, like we've seen some authors that kind of transferred over from Kodansha and Weekly Shonen magazine to Shonen Jump, I gotta imagine that they also get an even bigger offer. First time serialized authors are also provided with 500,000 yen in funds to help cover expenses in getting the series off the ground. So to give you in more simpler terms, essentially they give you like an advance of money, but that is basically to cover costs to create the actual work. And with 500,000 yen, they give you about a little over $3,000, $3,200, maybe $3,300, give or take, depending on the time period or whatnot. So they give you a little over $3,000 to utilize that in order to create the manga, you know, hire assistants, background workers, etc., etc. That is not that bad. It just all depends on how much you're paying the assistants and obviously how much time is being put on there. The mangaka himself is going to be the one that puts the most time. Assistants, when they're doing backgrounds and stuff like that, if they're getting paid an hourly rate, they're probably not getting paid the greatest at first if the manga author is only having about $3,000 to play with to kind of spend on their, you know, staff or whatnot. But that's still pretty good that at the very least they're giving them some money, make the project, get it off the ground, and let's go from there. Because mind you, regardless of what you want to say about these rates, you got to remember that this is still an investment from Weekly Shonen Jump. They still, at the end of the day, are a business, and they do want to see a profit at some given point. So if they are investing all of this money on your salary, the upfront costs for all of your assistants and whatnot, they do want to make some money back at some given point. And especially if it's a manga that doesn't succeed or meet certain expectations, then Shonen Jump has to eat that loss. Shonen Jump has to take the L and lose out on that money that they invested on that artist. So it's a bit of a slippery slope, but ultimately, I ain't gonna lie, so far I am not mad at these numbers at all. It's basically upfront, you make it into Shonen Jump, and at the very least for the first year or so, you are already making a very good living. Now mind you, the amount of work that you got to put in is no walk in the park. You're not just working, you know, 2 hours a week or anything like that. You're definitely going to town on creating. But if you look at it as an investment, and yes, it's a very harsh investment, but ultimately, like, hey, I work these X amount of years, 3, 4, 5 years, years. I'm making a Shonen Jump past my first year, keep on getting rate increases or whatnot. You could be sitting pretty when it's all said and done and never have to work again, or at the very least never have to do the weekly grind anymore. Like Masashi Kishimoto, after 15 years of making Naruto, you got to imagine that with all of the extra revenue surrounding him or whatnot, he probably made a substantial amount, and now that's why he can afford to do what he does. In terms of, you only see Masashi Kishimoto like in the background of Boruto, you know, kind of supervising, and you don't really see him going hardcore because he might not have to based on all of that finance that he made throughout his run in Weekly Shonen Jump. Weekly Shonen Jump's sibling publication, Jump Giga, simultaneously announced it is increasing its minimum rates as well. Let's go! This is big wins for Yuki Tabata, creator of Black Clover, because he just went to Jump Giga. Let's go! To 19,800 yen for color pages and 13,200 for black and white. Again, let's do the conversion. So for a color page, Tabata is getting almost equivalent to the same. He's getting about $130 a color page. And mind you, he has a lot of time to do it, and also Tabata has been kind of breaking the rules, so to speak, and dropping where he's supposed to do one chapter every 3 months. He dropped just 60 pages, 3 chapters in the last run, and he has 2 months only in between this release. Higher starting pay rates are, in and of themselves, good news for budding artists. However, it is also important to keep in mind that while 20 million yen a year sounds like a whole lot, few manga professionals produce an entire series by themselves. It's customary for manga creators to have multiple assistants, and those assistants get paid by the creator, not the publisher. In other words, a sizable chunk of that 21.7 million yen is going to be going to production costs. In addition, getting paid by the page means not getting paid by the hour, which also means no paid vacation time. As mentioned above, 21.7 million yen is the projected payment for 52 weeks of 20-page black and white chapters. So if the creator wants or needs to take time off, it's going to come with a deduction to their earnings. And I'll admit, that is definitely not something good. Like, ultimately, while we had a lot of good news of like, yo, creators are making a lot of money, especially those authors like Tagashi, where that's one of the things that you gotta look at Tagashi, that he didn't really want assistance, he didn't really want any help with Hunter x Hunter, so Tagashi was banking almost all of that money straight up to his pockets. And let's not forget to add in the fact that not only for merchandise, films and whatnot, the manga volumes, they also get, I believe, some residual percentages from each manga volume release. So you look at a creator like Tagashi, not only if he's not having any assistance and he's doing it all by himself, he's keeping all that revenue, then he drops a Hunter x Hunter volume here and there, it's gonna sell a couple million copies each volume. Like, yeah, a lot of this seems to be the case of how much work you're willing to put in, how much work your body can withstand putting in. Can you put in all that work by yourself, or how much assistance do you need while creating it? Because at the end of the day, you also got to keep in mind your health, because look at what happened to Tagashi while not utilizing assistance. So a lot of it is balancing out what you're capable of and what you're able to do versus also what you want to do, because you can have all the greatest ambition in the world. I want to do every chapter completely by myself, all of it, but if your body starts to break down on you, then yeah, cautionary tale, don't do that. As a result, it's hard to say whether or not manga creators are in an easy spot financially when starting out with Weekly Shonen Jump without knowing what their other expenses and preferred work-life balance is like. If nothing else though, at least they're in an easier spot than before. It definitely seems like when you put into account the assistance that you gotta pay and a lot of those extra various things, at first you're probably not going to be sitting pretty. Like, you gotta pay your assistants and you gotta try to pay them as well as you can to get top of the line quality work. It just is what it is. I'm getting paid good, I'm gonna do better work. There's a balance to it, but I gotta say that it's probably better than what some people might have initially thought. I'm not sure exactly what people expect when it comes to becoming a Weekly Shonen Jump mangaka. Like, if you thought that they were making millions just getting into Weekly Shonen Jump, then you were definitely sorely mistaken. But if you thought they were getting crumbs or whatnot, then this is incredible news that you make it a few years into Weekly Shonen Jump, you pay your assistants properly, the raises are gonna come in, all of the other stuff surrounding it is gonna come in, and yeah, you will actually be making a good financial gain doing this. And regardless, shout out to all the Weekly Shonen Jump authors that have went through this and figured it out, because yeah, this isn't easy work, but it definitely seems as though down the road it pays off. What's wrong with me? I keep on asking, putting a tough front, I'm asking, why do I disappoint when I mean well? Why just to get to the point I see hell? Maybe I can answer this another time. I know that I'll be good is all in my mind.